Also, the regular section of the Board of Education for Pearl River County School District being held August 11, 2022, beginning at 5:30 p.m. at the Pearl River Central Middle School Library, 739 Highway 11, Cary, Mississippi. Dear Father, Lord God, thank you for the time. Thank you for the opportunity to assemble here tonight. Lord, I pray for wisdom and we conduct business. Lord, together to improve the education experience of our children. We've got our hearts, got our thoughts, got our words. Help us to keep our focus on our children. Lord, please forgive us for failure. Forgive us for our sins. We start to be thankful for these and all the blessings. I appreciate that. We got Ms. Alford here. I think Ms. Alford here.
I'll introduce, I got their study introduction yet. Colonel Ryder is here, and Colonel will come and introduce our special guest with us.
Yes, ma'am. God bless you. Under the board, God bless you all. Tonight we have a rising leader in our recently reestablished Delta platoon. Cadet Payouts to 35 James McAndrew. He's falling out and getting it. God bless you. Thank you for coming and leading play.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God we trust.
I have a next public comment. We see we have 100 people signed up. It's Georgia Quinn. On the second bus stop. Did you get an opportunity to see the policy around public comment? Well, one of the things about the policy, first of all, we have a limited agreement. We'll check if we have a time, we will indicate that time. So part of the process with our public comments is that first of all, we sign up for the meeting, and we have to keep the comments not about any personal moves. Just kind of talk about, what are the subject is, make sure we need things and stuff like that. So then we went that 3 minutes and we had certain Bible. So we do that before.
The first stop is down my area. Then I got 2 nephews in Lucy, and I had to walk to the bus stop to get away. And I was wondering why they don't turn down and stop what they did because they were doing it last year. And my nephew in Lucy, they're only 5 years old. And I got 2 other people on Southwest school. That red bus coming or stop.
Well, one of the part of the process as well, then when we have somebody speaking in public comment, the board does not necessarily address those issues at the time. We just listen to those and take them in advisement, but we don't really discuss those.
How do I get in touch with the bus board? I need to call them and then work extra hard. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to consider the agenda. So moved. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Have a second. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any discussion on the agenda? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the current agenda, let me indicate by saying yay. Yay. Any opposed? There be none. Motion passes unanimously. We will keep the agenda as printed. But I have a motion to consider approving the board minutes of July 21, 2022. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I have a second. Thank you, Mr. Owen. Any discussion on the minutes? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, the board minutes of July 21st, 2022, that I'm indicating by saying yea. Yea. Any opposed? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. Brings us now to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier, and members. Welcome to the audit board meeting. Remember that our state representatives have our state election going on, and you have some financial reports, and also I do want to report out on our enrollment. Our current enrollment is the total is 3,355 students. Last August, we started with 3,000. And right now we have 425. So I wanted you to know a little bit about what's happening at our schools, and I actually hope to something to give to you also. The elementary school, the teachers and staff are rock stars. They have loved and supported our children from the first day of school. From walking students to classes, to finding buses. They strive to help our students become familiar and comfortable with the new environment. The first few days can be very early, but our staff goes way above and beyond to help each student to make a positive experience. Kinder parents were invited to attend a boo-hoo Yahoo breakfast. That's a tongue tie. Yes, on the first day of school, and they were given information and allowed to ask questions so that we can ease their anxiety. PRCSD is off to a great start. At the middle school, they also had a great start. Teachers will welcome back on campus with an amazing district-wide 80s rally. Hulk Hogan made it here. And he defeated Darth Vader. If you hadn't seen those pictures, it's something to behold. Meet the Teacher was a huge success. At the middle school only, we had over 600. So it was amazing turnout. We welcome back students. They had their own back to school rally, I think it was on Friday, and everything is full speed ahead in all of their classes. And the middle school is excited about a great year, and there are no limits to the success that our students and teachers will achieve. Our high school kicked off the year with an epic back to school rally. The Blue Brigade, the dance team, and cheerleaders all performed, and the senior class won the PRCSD. Really the senior class of the winner. Special thanks to Mrs. Hardy because she led and organized that rally. Students have been excited and eager to be back on campus. This year we have morning break. We haven't had that in a couple of years. We had breakfast and lunch in the cafeteria, and it's starting to feel more like a CTE is excited about their students being back on campus. Our instructors attended the Mississippi Association of Career and Technical Education Conference this summer, and they're using all of that information that they gained to plan engaging lessons and activities. So they look forward to working to train tomorrow's workforce today. So while only 5 days in, everyone at the high school, at the best high school in Mississippi, Endeavor School is an energy bus school. Energy bus is they're learning the skills associated with it, and it's built the climate and culture at the alternative school, and it's been phenomenal so far. Employees are implementing those new ideas they learned this summer, and like they were culture. Next, TJ will have our operations report.
All
All right, so I'll start with construction. So the auditorium, of course, I'm not going to give you a date of completion.
We want to know.
So the lobby's been completed. We're waiting on some paper. Guys can install those in those restrooms. And that's hopefully by the end of next week to start using those restrooms that have to go to people either use the restrooms. In the auditorium, they are starting to paint the floor to prepare for the installation of the seating. The seating, as long as they get done what they're supposed to get done, the seating starting next week sometime. So they started to close up your famous hole. Yeah, so hopefully they'll have some break on that wall soon. And the millwork in the prop shop is complete, and the dressing rooms materials will arrive next week. So they will be 2 weeks. The cheer and dance practice facility received the contract from Keith today. So I'll have that on the September board meeting for approval. They're expecting to get started with construction after that. Same thing with the concession stand with the ball field. See that contract today, and plan on getting started with that. The cheer and dance practice facility expected to be completed by the end of the school, April, May timeframe for that, and then have that. A couple of things from operations, the athletics and activities, the all-season passes are on sale. On the agenda tonight, those passes are on sale for GoFan only. The volleyball team kicked off their season this past Tuesday. Their first home game will be on August 16th at 4:30 at Neal Gym. Meet the Devils is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the stadium, at the football stadium. And the first middle school home game will be on August 25th at 5 o'clock, and the first varsity home game will be the following day on August 26th at 7:30. The swim team will kick off their season on August 16th at home at Billboard. That's first. Campus police on August 1st, the first day our staff came back to work. We held the craze training. The craze training it teaches everyone how to handle disaster situations such as active shooter. The 3 key actions to craze training are to avoid, which means to leave or know your exits, to deny, which means lock your doors, hide if you need to, and defend, which means fight for whatever it takes to save your life and save someone else's life. The SROs, they inspect the campus regularly throughout the day. They try to be visible, and they also check our safety protocols, such as locked doors, making sure that employees have their badges on, and exterior doors are closed as well. Over the summer, our SROs also replaced safety signage throughout the district and installed speed bumps on the back roads going back to the bus barn on this campus. Child nutrition. Child nutrition with Amaker had a chef demonstration. A chef come in and they did some demonstrations with staff during the PD days, August 1st through the 3rd. Just teach them some different ways to enhance their menu, and do different flavors to their menus, and while staying within the nutritional guidelines. They'll continue to implement those changes to enhance the flavors in our cafeteria. Maintenance. They completed all their summer projects and started working on the work orders that we received. I think last week they completed something crazy like 120 work orders. First the school you just come back and that's the first thing they do is put in a bunch of work orders. But they've been going through those and getting those completed. Some of their summer accomplishments were they built the ISD cubicles in N6 at the high school. They installed fans at the elementary gym to help cool that area down for volleyball and during the day for those gym classes. And they installed new LED lighting in K Hall. And they constructed the storage millwork in the auditorium classroom. That was not included in the contract. Technology, they've been completing work orders just like maintenance, and they've been getting Chromebooks as fast as they can to all of our students. And they've also held multiple trainings over the summer for our instruction staff. Transportation, our bus drivers and other staff who hold the CDL have been MVPs of this school year. We're currently 10 drivers short of full staff. So that's about 30% of our less than what we should have. So of course, we have to be creative with routing and bus stops to minimize the time that a student rides on the bus because of that shortage. We received about 15 driver applications. We started not only on our website, our Facebook page, we also posted it on Indeed.com, and a lot of those applications come to that site. So we received about 15 applications, but none of them are capable of starting right now because they don't have CDL, they're not certified. Coach Stockstill and Jamie have been calling those individuals, having them come in and get the CDL manual and talk through what that process looks like to get certified, to drive the bus, but it's a long process. They get certified. We hope to have them certified as soon as you can. They're willing to go through that.
Thank you, Mr. Melton. Appreciate it.
Just a couple of dates to remember in board workshop on September 8th at noon. And we have football jamborees coming up. The junior high is August 18th, and the high school is August 18th at daytime.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of comments, we listen to Mr. Dolch's report. We see that the activity really hadn't slowed down since the bond passed, and there's a lot of progress on the campus. We just really appreciate all the work that everybody's doing to keep that going. Also, just kind of proud of the progress we made thus far, so we appreciate that. And after we look at Dr. Vogel, glad to see that we're getting back to some semblance of normalcy. I know the students appreciate that, and so does the staff, and also the board appreciate that. So we thank you so much. Next, we move down to our financial items. Can I have a motion to consider approving the following financial items? If the board so chooses, we'll take that item A through T, item A through T. Thank you, Mr. Harold. Oh, Mr. Odom. We have a second. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any discussion on that, on the financial items? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the following financial items, item A through T, then I'm indicate that saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. Can I have a motion to consider the consent agenda? And we'll take that item A through J. Item A through J. Motion to consider the consent agenda. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Have a second. Thank you, Mr. Harris. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, let me indicate they're saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. Bring us down to section 9 policies. I have a motion to consider approving section F, facility expansion of policy. Have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Herring. Have a second. Thank you, Mr. Oldham. Discussion on the policy section F. Again, after we look at those policies, there were no changes, no recommended changes, so the policies are unchanged from last school year. Any other questions or discussion on the policy? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving policy section F, facility expansion, that will indicate they're saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. Could I have a motion to consider approving PRC administration's recommended revisions to policy JD CBA student transfer tuition? Have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Odom. Have a second. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Discussion on policy JD CBA. Yeah, the only thing about that we reviewed this policy in the last board meeting. That was a change from the recommended tuition. Initially was $5,000 with a descending scale for each additional child that attended school. And the vision was that tuition was lowered to $2,000 per child without regards to how many children. So it's $2,000 per child per year. That was the change to that policy. Any other discussion on that policy? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving PRC administration recommended revisions to policy JB CBA, which is student transfer tuition, that indicate they're saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. Can I have a motion to consider approving election for board trustee district 1 and 2 to correct the election cycle? The election will be held in November 2022. Also approve District 3 and 4 to back for election in November 2024 and District 5 in November 2026. This will put all 5 districts back in regular cycle. I have a motion. Thank you, Mr. Harriman. I have a second. Thank you, Mr. Odom. Discussion on the election cycle.
But was the District 3 and 4 term short of a year?
Yes.
Okay. I thought that was it.
What happened, when the initial legislation came in place back in 1988, all the districts were supposed to be a 6-year cycle, but that's supposed to be 2 years between District 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and then 5. And one of the things that happened there in the very beginning, I don't think that was fully understood, so the cycle got off track. In fact, we have been off track for quite some time. And so this request, which is, first of all, it's the law. We have to stay within the regulations by the law, the state law, that 1 and 2's election is supposed to be in 2022. The law says also the District 3 and 4 must be in 2024 and District 5 in 2026. So what this does, we're not changing the election cycle, but what we're doing is that we are agreeing to abide by and stick to the election cycle. So in essence, we'll shorten District 1 and 2 term by 2 years, and then it's going to shorten the term to District 3 and 4 and also District 5 by 1. And then once that happens, then we'll be back into the regular cycle. And then this, even though we talked about this in May, it was not something that we voted on because it's the law. We didn't vote on it, but he requested that we vote on this to allow us to make sure everybody understood what was going on. But we're not actually changing the election. We agree that we're going to abide by it. I mean, it's the only minute that talk with that. In fact, the letter that Ms. Stokes is attached here, it was a letter from Mr. Keith and Ms. Stokes. They had that conversation. I think he actually drafted it. So all in favor of approving the election cycle for board trustees. I won't go through the down forward, but again, this is to get everybody back in cycle. So all in favor of approving the election cycle for board trustees that indicate saying yea, yea, any opposers? There be none, motion passed unanimous. The next thing on the agenda is consider reviewing the 2022-2023 PRC School District Return to Learn, previously known as the relaunch plan. They have a motion. They have a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Aaron, Mr. Jones. So the item says consider reviewing. I'm assuming it's reviewing and accepting. So as we look at the relaunch plan, there was really no significant changes, and I think there were 4 things I noted in it. The first thing was the plan name was changed from relaunch plan to return to learn. That was the first change. The second thing that was changed, that the contact information was indicated that need to be notified if there's some kind of case of COVID. That information was added and updated. The third thing, there was some changes in the exposure and quarantine guidelines, and there was nothing significant in it. And then the last thing I noticed was changed is that the school times were removed from the college. Dr. Bo, you have anything you'd like to talk about?
No, we would like to have the CDC recommendations which have changed, and we made sure that, that our policy matches that, and that we are reporting to it.
And I just want to note that there was nothing in the plan that makes it mandatory wearing masks. That's one thing that came up several times. You know, that's an option, the person so chooses to do so. But the adults were the only thing that was changed in the plan, and we reviewed that this last board. Any additional comments on that? If not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of consider reviewing and approving the 2022-2023 PRC School District Return to Learning Plan. That will indicate they're saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. I have a motion to consider discussing and approving one of 2 methods of stakeholder engagement meetings and the next step of the superintendent search process. So this will be discussing and approving one of the methods. Have a motion.
David, let me get some lines.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. They have a second. Thank you, Mr. Odom. Any discussion on these 2 different options here? Then we're going to select one and approve that. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing stakeholder engagement. We understand that how significant it is to select a superintendent by a school district, you know, and certainly involve the public and also the business community as well. So it's a very important step. It's not something that's just confined just to the board, 5 members. But again, we're looking for ways to reach out to the public and also to the administration team to get their opinions and also input about, you know, who we should select. We're certainly not trying to do this in a vacuum, and we certainly want to be above board and very transparent in the process. So again, this method that on the table tonight are just a way for us to talk about how we want to engage the public and community, to include parents, business communities, and also leadership in the district. So there were 2 plans submitted, and these plans were submitted to us by MSBA, which is conducting the search for us. The first plan is called the Stakeholder Meeting and Survey. This particular method, they will conduct Zoom meetings, and the times will be coordinated through the school, but the Zoom meeting will be open to anybody who wants to participate in the meetings. The board will not be conducting the meetings, but the officials of MSBA will be conducting both meetings, Zoom meetings. And then the people will be able to change with them and talk about, you know, some of their preferences and some of the things we want to make sure that the new superintendent will address. And then also part of that, there will be a survey that goes out as well. And all those things again open to our community members that have their input. So there's a Zoom meeting and also an online survey. And then you can also access those surveys in time on the school website as well as MSBA's website as well. The second method is stakeholder meeting, which is in person, and then the survey description. So again, this particular process where officials from MSBA will come down and actually conduct in-person meetings with the administration, with parents, with business leaders, to talk about what the expectation of the new superintendent would be, and also some of the desires they would like to have. And then in the second part, again, they will still do the online survey. Once either one of these choices are selected, the board won't be involved in these meetings. MSBA will actually conduct the meetings, compile this and report, and that report will come back to us at the time we actually start doing interviews. We use that information to make determinations as as we go through the process of interviewing. And also, there's an option that we could do a modified process. Maybe just want to do just the in-person meeting and don't do the online survey, or maybe just want to do just the online survey. But these are some of the things that we need to decide. And once we make that decision, that information will be transmitted back to the SBA, and they will work with the sheriff and Dr. Gold about trying to determine the best times and also the location of the meeting. So the board won't be actually participating in that piece. You still can attend as a citizen and a concerned individual, but not attending as a board. Any other questions, discussion?
In my opinion, the in-person would be effective. But we're gonna be more cost incurred.
No, in fact, we pay the flat fee for the service. So whatever they do is not even getting it. So it's already been paid for the process. And before the pandemic, the only thing they did was in-person meetings. They didn't actually do the Zoom meetings before this. So this was just a way to continue the search process during the pandemic when they brought in the Zoom meetings. But before the standard process was to do everything in person. Another question, bro. I would agree with you. In person. Yeah, the only thing with the in-person piece, I think it's a little bit more difficult to coordinate, getting people from different areas to come in. Not to say that's a hindrance too, but it's probably a little more difficult to coordinate this piece. And then the other side, a lot of folks may not have the technology Zoom. So again, before the pandemic, everything was done in person. I think people get a chance in person. They have more of an exchange with MSBA officials. They get a chance to ask more questions. And I think a lot of times when we got a group of folks, one person may ask a question, that means per an idea in your mind as well. So again, I think the in-person stuff works. I think it's a good opportunity to make sure people get their opinions heard. But again, it's very important that the community understands that we're doing it on a transparent basis, that everything is going forward, not trying to slide anybody in or out or anything like that. We want to make sure everybody understands it. So first of all, I'd like to have a motion to make a selection on which one of these processes we want to use first.
I'll make a motion to select the stakeholder meetings in person survey and the online survey for the superintendent search process.
Thank you, Mr. Harriman. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Jones. So the motion is second that we select the in-person stakeholder meeting with the addition of an online survey to get additional input from the general public at large. All in favor of selecting, which is the first option, the in-person stakeholder meeting with an online survey that's saying yay. Yay. Any opposers? There be none. Motion passed unanimously. And then I will certainly also ask for a motion to approve this plan and submit it to MSBA so they can go ahead and start that process. And I have a motion to submit this to MSBA using in-person stakeholder. Just voted on or was that? The original one was to select one. Yeah. So we selected A, and then the second just to approve that plan. Fresh motion. Yes, it's a fresh motion. Motion, Mr. Mayor. Use an option. Yes. I don't have it. It's not, this is not.
Oh, okay, all right.
Straightforward meetings in person. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Have a second. Thank you, Ms. Owen. Call for a vote. All in favor of approving this next step in the process using in-person meetings and online survey, they'll indicate they're saying yay. Yay. Any opposed? There be none. Motion passed. Next, we have to have an executive session. Can I have a motion to go into closed session to determine who's going to executive session? Thank you, Mr. Harris. Have a second. Thank you, Ms. Owen. All in favor of going into closed session to determine who's going to executive session, that indicate they're saying yay.